All right, gentlemen, moving forward, we've got a presentation on the first half 2022 financials from Trustee John Becker.
Okay, so as I've been doing these financial presentations, I've been looking a whole lot on 2021. The reason for that is they have a full year of data for 2021, and also kind of a warm-up to get me accustomed to data and used to it when I start digging into what happened to the screen. It's back.
You're back.
Okay. So now we have 6 months. Technical difficulties. Now we got 6 months of data, January through June for 2022. So I put together a presentation to kind of compare and contrast the first half of 22 to the first half of 21. And a lot of times it's not a fair comparison because there can be so much variation in when expenses and revenue can hit. But I took a stab at it regardless. So the first item. First time I want you to look at, this is a cash position statement, and this is a cash position statement. This is a kind of document that's out on the website, and Mr. Campbell puts that out every month, and it gives you the official totals for the various funds. And the numbers I look at on here, at least for the purposes of this demonstration, is the net revenue, which is in the yellow, and that amount was $26.6 million. And then the net expenses, and that amount was $20.4 million. So I guess at an immediate glance, it looks like we're doing quite well in terms of revenue versus expenses. However, this is not a management report. When you get into the expenses a little bit more, or the revenue side, you get a different picture. Okay, so this first slide, I've only got 4 of these. So this first slide is, this is the first half of 22 compared to the first half of 21, and this is just the revenue component of it. So what I want to bring to your attention is that, for one thing, we are ahead. The left, I know from the audience it's hard to see all this, but from the left-hand side is the 2022 first half, and the right-hand side is the 2021 first half. So the bottom bar, that bluish bar, those are the real estate taxes we bring in. The orangish bar above that is what I've just combined as TIFs, JEDs, and SIDs. That's our economic development type of income. And part of that, well, I'll get to that in the next slide. But I will say that the property taxes is 42% of our revenue, and 28% is the TIFs and JEDs. The little section above that, that gray area, it's much bigger on the 2022 number. That's the economic development. I used to call that previous reports called that capital. And that was, so what I was just calling capital, it'd be property acquisitions, sales, infrastructure improvements, that sort of thing. Building a firehouse, I put that under capital. So I'm just simply renaming that as economic development, so because it can confuse other uses of the word capital. Let's go to the next slide. So this slide, and again, I know y'all can't read that in the audience, but again, it's the same slide you're just looking at, but rather than a stacked bar, it shows each category side by side. So the green bar is the 2022 first half data, and the gray bar is the 2021 first half data. So that first set, if you will, those are the real estate taxes. Again, this is the revenue side of it. And then the second set is the TIFs, JEDs, and SIDs. The third set, and so there's actually a couple of things I want to point out here. So that third set, economic development. So you see that green bar on the left is for 2022, and we got an enormous amount of economic development income. Well, the reason for that was we sold some properties. There was a Glen Estee site for $2.7 million. There was Ivy Point. We sold to TQL for $1 million. And so almost all of that bar there, $3.7 million, was simply the sales of property. Also, go over a couple of sets there, and you'll see a pass-through section. So you see a gray bar on the on the right-hand side for 2021. That's for pass-throughs. That's a $2 million transfer that's in those numbers that wasn't in the first half of 22. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now I want to get to the expense side of it. So looking at comparing again first half of 22 to the first half of 21, the numbers look very similar in terms of the total. The bottom block there, that's red is for fire, blue is for police, the parks are green, the roads are black, so I'm kind of trying to be consistent with some of the color coding. So we spent a whole lot more money in the category of the fire department, relative to pretty much everything else. And when I looked into that, it was, pretty obvious. We built a new firehouse, we had new equipment, we've had some increases in personnel and promotions, that sort of thing. So it's not only equipment purchases, but also the personnel expenses. And I do want to make a comment about kind of personnel in general. So the workforce here in Union Township is, I'll just say, an aging workforce, for lack of a better description. As people get older, there's higher expenses with healthcare costs. And additionally, as people retire, when they tend to get large payouts of vacation time, sick days, things that they had accumulated. It's all good stuff. But that's the reason we're going to have a continuing increase in personnel expenses. This, where am I? This last chart then is showing, again, the first half of 22 versus the first half of 21. And that first set there is for the fire department. You can see how much more it was for 22 over the first half of 21 for the reasons I just explained. Police wasn't a whole lot different. School's a little higher. We're paying out more in TIFs to them, so that means we're getting more TIF revenue for us. That's a good thing. And the pass-through is that big gray bar, but the fourth set over. Again, it's a $2 million transfer. And the economic development is that next one, and I'm going to stop there. So that gray bar being larger for 21 rather than 22 was the acquisition of some properties. That was I'm going to go from memory. It was Ron, Mr. Campbell, can you help me out? What did we purchase last year in the first half?
Particularly for the fire department?
So the important thing to do is look at and learn from this is, if you go back to your third slide. So Union Township is focused heavily on economic development. What we do here is we purchase property, we amass the property, and then we look for business partners that we can bring to the community, that we can sell the property back to. Normally we have a tax increment financing district set up, and then we also do a joint economic development. All this is with the precept that we're keeping the tax bases lower for the residents. So what we've done over the years, as long as I've been here, is all about economic development. And I think that's what your graphs are going to show you there. Yeah, we're a little inflated this year because we sold property, but that's a good story. That's why we bought the property, is to sell it. And then when we do that, we use the JEDs and the TIFs to pay for salaries for our emergency services people. And if you look at the total overall picture, the majority of the cost at Union Township is in personnel, which is to be expected. We have a fully accredited, all of our services are accredited. But it's very expensive to run firehouses, to run police departments, and the way that we do that is with our economic development. That's the backstop to everything that we do here. A lot of good forethought went into that, and I think that's what we need to continue to do going forward. Later on, I'm going to present the statutory budget. It's totally different from an operating budget, but we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think what Mr. Becker's trying to tell you is that we're in good shape here. We're tracking very similar to what our expenses were last year, with the exception of the firehouse. And we brought Station 53 online. You had some, acquisition costs in there to get the building up and running. We promoted 6 lieutenants, which is a nice thing to do. And then we went from a hire of 7. 3 of those were actually new hires. So we had 4 people that left. We replaced those and then added 3.
Thank you for that explanation.
I hope that helps.
It's very helpful. I did find the number I was looking for. Hamilton Safe, we spent $757,000 down there on infrastructure. We had 2 property purchases that came out to $600,000. And there was some improvements down at our McMahon properties, which was another like $270,000. So those were those kind of unusual expenses, if you will, that had occurred during the first part. So that's why you get so much variance, in different time periods and trying to look at these numbers side by side. And with that, gentlemen, it concludes my report. Any questions for me? Or Mr. Campbell, for that matter? Institutional knowledge.
No, so Hamilton Safe is a perfect example, not to belittle what we're doing here, but that's a perfect example, right? We partnered with Hamilton Safe, we brought the infrastructure improvements down there, the sewer lines, upgraded the railroad system, easements there, and the power grid down there, and then now, they've built a really nice facility, brought new jobs to Union Township, and at the same time, the rest of that property's down there would be eligible to redevelop because the sewer lines are now in place. So that's what economic development does, and that's the whole premise behind doing the TIF deals that we do. I know, from spectators, it's kind of overwhelming, but when you get involved, you start to understand the concepts here. Those are the tools that we have that I think we do a really good job with.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you, Trustee Becker. I've got no further comments or questions.
I'm not too concerned about the increase of spending with the fire, and I honestly think we got to get used to it.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to find police officers and firefighters right now, and we got to take care of them. And I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I don't like spending money. I like trying to save our taxpayers as much money as possible. But if I have to say what would I spend money on, it would be our police and fire. It's funny, we were talking about a lateral program, getting other police and firefighters to come over here and have what's called a lateral program, and I'm all about it, and it's not going to get any easier. Who wakes up today and wants to be a police officer? I remember 15, 20 years ago, I absolutely wanted to be, and but nowadays, that's not the case, and so if we want the best, I got a feeling it's not going to get any cheaper. So I'm okay with those 2 blocks being slightly bigger. That doesn't mean we can't watch our expenses in other categories. But as far as, I think both of you would agree, is police and fire, I have no problem with that, so.
Public safety, absolutely.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate the special presentation.